There are three films that I consider to be the best ever. They are Space Odyssey, Andrei Rublev, and Breathless by Jean-Luc Godard. In my world, these are not to be disputed. And that last one I've just rewatched and realized just how damn important it really was for me. I love Breathless. I saw it around 10 to 15 times, and I did for the first time when I was 13 on the telly, and it lured me in immediately. What a beautiful film, that flightiness, that style, the cockiness, the dynamism, a bombardment of Gestalt feeling in those jump cuts. Of course we know it as a real landmark of indie cinema, that amazing film Godard pulled off with no budget and a single, small, but liberated camera, being able to move in whichever intimate part it pleases, and I think this is why Breathless captivates me. It's completely removed from that Hollywood stiffness that dominated in the likes of Hitchcock. Instead, here's one of those great sequences in film history, the famous bedroom scene, that takes a third of the film's runtime, and where it's just our two main characters, a crook and a newswoman, in dirty underwear and left to be themselves, their very own Eden. It is so tender, so intimate. You can feel the softness of the mattresses and blankets, and they are both so loving and so full of wisdom, each in their own way. It was the first time I ever saw something, at my tender age, that made me think adulthood could be very appealing, if life were as adventurous as those of Michelle and Patricia. Of course, there was just one stop in my future infatuation with Godard, but Breathless at least is his most accessible and mainstream film. I also did like the much more radical Masculine Féminine, the hilarious but also really cool Alphaville, which is like what if you made Blade Runner in the 1960s, and also Mépris. It's been a long time, but I didn't get that one. It felt too alienating. There's some other French New Wave classics. I enjoyed last year Marienbad, but I'm afraid it's too wispy for me. But one film that meant to me just as much as Breathless was Chris Marker's La Jetée. I always look at it and I think it's such a miracle that it exists.
The girl seems also to be tamed. She welcomes as a natural phenomenon the ways of this visitor who comes and goes, who exists, talks, laughs with her, stops talking, listens to her, then vanishes.
What a pinnacle of beauty and emotion. It was that film that really made me love photography. And I think that, really, those two Frenchmen, Godard and Marker, were to become really elemental in my creative outlet, and really influential for how I make my comic The Ingrid's Maneuver. Of course, it's a tribute to everything 1960s, and also Richard Lester, who made the new wave inspired A Hard Day's Night, and also my most favourite film of all, The Knack and How to Get It. But Godard and Marker, with their films especially, managed to capture this vitality and frailty and emotional richness that I value, and I can only dream that I could come even to the shadow of their genius. Godard may be chokingly cynical all the time, but one thing I do not deny is that man loved cinema and storytelling, and his enthusiasm for it is so infectious. He once said, "All you need to make a movie is a girl and a gun." He was so right, and it's one of those little truisms of his and many other directors that I adore. Love and respect.